Good evening, everyone. This is the regular meeting of the Westland Community School Board of Education, now brought to order on Monday, August 20th, 2018. For some reason, I keep wanting to say 15. I don't know why I'm trying to go backwards. But it's 2018. On behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to welcome each and every one of you. Your attendance here reflects your interest in local education and is greatly appreciated. At this time, we'll go to agenda item 113.18. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to item number 114.18, roll call. Ms. Hines?
Present.
Mr. Buckland?
Present.
Dr. Weaver?
Present.
We can just speak louder.
Ms. Hines, present. Ms. Madison?
Excuse, she had to work late.
Ms. Medill?
I'm here.
Ms. Walker?
Present. Okay, you good? Dr. Weaver?
And Dr. Weaver.
Got him.
Okay. All right. Okay, we do have a quorum. Moving on to item number 60.
60.
Item number 115.18, recognitions and presentations. Dr. Holt.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I'd like to call up Mrs. Kate Brawl, who is going to do our content team's presentation.
Good evening. We're excited to share the curriculum work that was completed during the 2017-2018 school year. We have 8 content teams across the district, an elementary and secondary team, here we go, for each of the 4 core content areas. The leaders of these teams and the members that meet each month drive the work to help move us forward, and I couldn't be more proud of their leadership and what they've accomplished so far in the short time that I've worked with them. Joining us tonight are 4 of the leaders. So we have Karen Dickelman, who is our elementary social studies content team leader. We have Annie Phillips, who is our secondary ELA content team leader. We have Gwen Frettenborough, who is our secondary social studies content team leader. And although you don't see her name and she doesn't look like Andy Reiseman, this is Megan King, and she is our new secondary math content team leader. And Andy Reiseman is here to support. He was the secondary math content team leader last year. So our goals are ongoing development, enhancement, and sustainability of content-specific curriculum throughout the district, to review, develop, present, and implement high-quality instructional practices, and to support communication between buildings regarding the dissemination of information related to curriculum materials and the district vision. So I will share the accomplishments, challenges, and recommendations for the district as a whole, and then content team leader will present the same for each of their content teams. So the district accomplishments were convening the entire team of content team leaders 3 times to collaborate vertically and across content teams, the development of scope and sequence documents for every K-12 core class, which will be given to each teacher in a curriculum guide at the start of the 18-19 school year. Here's just a couple samples. Teachers will all get next week. Our challenges are inconsistency across schools within curriculum implementation, was why we started with this curriculum guide, and representation at meetings. Recommendations for the 2018-2019 school year are to use the new curriculum guide and scope and sequence documents to lead collaboration throughout the district, to make the curriculum guide documents accessible online, to continually reflect on these documents for each core course as they will be living documents, to develop common benchmark assessments, and to refine K-4 standards-based report cards based on our focus standards. Annie Phillips is our secondary ELA content team leader, and she will share about both elementary and secondary ELA.
Hi, everyone. The elementary ELA content leader is Emily Reynolds. Her team of 8 to 10 teachers met face-to-face at the board office working on ways to support teachers through ELA instruction and studying the 3rd grade reading law for district implementation. The elementary ELA content team met to determine how to comply with 3rd grade reading law requirements such as data tracking, reading plans, and parent information letter. Additionally, the team prepared a presentation to be shared with all staff members for 3rd grade reading law awareness and understanding. The team also gathered input from other teachers in the district by utilizing online meetings and accumulated data from all building principals about what their teachers are using to teach reading and writing. As a team, they communicated about what resources are being used throughout all elementary and upper elementary schools to teach reading and writing. The team also prepared the scope and sequence for elementary reading and writing for the district curriculum guide. They had a successful year meeting and preparing the district to be in compliance with the 3rd grade reading law, but they also had some challenges as a team. There was no curriculum consistency between buildings or grade levels. And the main resource provided was not being used with fidelity across the district. Lastly, a challenge they faced as a team was providing enough support for teachers who didn't feel as comfortable teaching ELA. They hope that with the updated scope and sequence in the curriculum guide, they'll be able to address some of those challenges. Moving forward, it would be really helpful if there was a way to get more buildings represented at the ELA content team meetings. Without representation from all buildings, things get lost in communication. If there was one representation from each building, they could spend some of their meeting time as some sort of training and ELA booster for themselves that they can take back to teachers at their respective buildings. Now for secondary ELA. The secondary ELA committee has achieved some important work in the past year. We began using the online meeting model this year, which increased participation and input from members and received positive feedback from participating members who use the online format. Through those meetings, the committee began discussing the lack of updated vertical alignment documents. In February of 2018, we were charged with creating scope and sequence documents for 7th through 12th grade ELA. The middle school teams from both schools met in May, and through one day of collaborative work, we were able to complete the scope and sequence documents, including focus standards, essential questions to drive the instruction, recommended texts, common writing pieces, and speaking and listening requirements. High school teams began work in June, with most teams meeting for a day of work on June 18th. The biggest challenge for secondary ELA committee will be creating a scope and sequence document that accurately captures what takes place in grade levels across the district in separate buildings. Since we have not been required to have common curriculum, aside from like assessments, for several years, since about 2011, many grade level teams have been collaborating within their own buildings, but there's not been as much collaboration across buildings. This challenge should be alleviated by ensuring to members of the committee that these documents are living documents that can be changed and added to as we go through implementation. For the 2018-2019 school year, much of the work will be focused on communicating regularly within grade level teams across buildings to further the development and effectiveness of these documents. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Megan King is coming up.
Chelsea Ennis is our elementary math content leader, and I am the secondary math content leader. I'll start with elementary math. The accomplishments for the 2017-2018 school year are that we have continued our shift to digital meetings each month. With this, we connect with an average of 42 staff members each month compared to an average of 8 when doing in-person meetings. Each month, every building was represented by at least one staff member, and we continue to use Eureka Math for our K-12 math curriculum. This continuation helps with the building of math vocabulary and model concepts over the years. Our challenges were Eureka Math is not being used consistently from building to building and even classroom to classroom. Each building is using their data collected differently, making it difficult to assess the individual needs of students over multiple years. And inconsistency in assessments has made it difficult to plan for the needs of the students and the professional development needs of the staff. The recommendations for 2018-2019 are to use the new curriculum guide along with professional development supported by the RESA math consultants to build a common foundation for math instruction in K-6 classrooms, and to work to develop standards-based common assessments using the Eureka Math curriculum, whose data is commonly reported throughout the district. at the secondary level. Accomplishments. We worked on finding solutions to the issues that we had with book ordering. We are confident that the process will be much better going into the 2018-2019 school year. We added courses, statistics, trigonometry, and project-based, to the math curriculum, giving 11th and 12th graders more options. We also revamped the Algebra 2 course. Everyone will take Algebra 2 for 1 year, and the 2-year Algebra 2 course will no longer be offered. Wayne, Glenn, and Ford all worked together on aligning the Algebra 2 curriculum and created a book that will be good for students of all math abilities. We also created a math skills class meant to reinforce important middle school and Algebra 1 topics to prepare struggling students for Algebra 2. The challenges we encountered were issues with the book ordering process from Office Depot to start the year. Also, there was a lot of work to be done in creating the new math courses and changing some of the existing ones. Our recommendations for 2018-2019, we want to continue to work on improving the book ordering process. And we made a lot of progress with the communication process between all of the schools. We can build on that momentum moving into this year. This will definitely be necessary when teaching the new courses this year. For example, Wayne is running more stats classes than Glenn, so Glenn can learn from what we do first semester. Glenn is running the senior base class that we didn't fill at Wayne, so Wayne can learn from Glenn. We are lucky to have solid contributions from all the buildings, including Career Tech and Tinkham. I'm confident that this collaboration will get even better next year.
All right, I will be sharing out about both elementary and secondary science. Chris Feisey is the elementary science content team leader, and the accomplishments for this year was that a scope and sequence was agreed upon for the 2018-19 school year, and there was increased communication between K-6 Elementary Science Committee and the middle school buildings. Some of the challenges were having all schools in the district represented at the science meetings, and reported use of outside science resources that might not adequately cover the Michigan science standards, and failure to implement the technology component of the science curriculum. So the recommendations for this school year are that the technology department and RISA work together to provide logins for each classroom teacher, and to offer a day to science committee members to work on science needs like benchmark assessments, identifying and filling gaps in our curriculum. All right, our secondary science content leader is Joni Van Kampenhout, and the accomplishments from that team is that they determined a new sequence of courses for high school students so that all standards are provided within the 3-course progression. Grade level and subject area meetings were held to determine division of all standards for middle school and high school courses. They began implementation of MSS, NSS aligned units in all areas. They developed an initial scope and sequence document for each grade subject area with the understanding that this is a work in progress. And 6th grade will now participate with the secondary content team next year to better facilitate content alignment. Some of the challenges were having increased participation at district content meetings, so all voices were represented. Finding MSS, NGSS aligned curriculum. Due to this, many teachers were working together just to create units on their own. Recommendations for the 2018-19 school year is time for grade levels or subject area teams to meet to continue to develop and refine the NGSS aligned units and assessments, and to have teams did begin meeting over the summer to continue to complete the scope and sequence documents for secondary science and to refine and develop units and begin assessment development. Karen Dickelman will read about elementary social studies.
Welcome. This year we were holding our meetings digitally 6 times this school year. The staff was sent a Google Slides, and once they checked in with a Google form, they were able to participate whenever was a convenient time for them, which worked out very well. Bless you. Some accomplishments. This year we continued the digital format. This was our 2nd year for the content meetings. We found this to be a huge success. Before, we would have 4 to 5 members show up for meetings on a good month. And since we've converted to the digital format, we are averaging between 30 and 60 staff check-ins and receiving the material. This has helped tremendously, and now that more staff across the district are able to get the information from the committee, it helps to keep us all on the same page and have the same opportunities. Whereas before, the information would maybe reach 2 or 3 buildings total, now we're reaching almost every school. Another accomplishment is that we were able to pilot Discovery Education's Social Studies Tech Book. This was an outstanding opportunity which 7 teachers from grades 5 through 8 were able to use this resource for a good portion of the year. It had wonderful resources that reached many type of learners with differentiated reading levels, reading support, text to self and highlight reading. Each student had their own account, so they were able to take notes, highlight, draw, and the book continues. So what that means is if they're in 8th grade and they wanted to go back to their 5th grade history class, they could in an instant. They'd be able to see their notes, their highlighted materials from the years past. Discovery Education Social Studies Textbook was enjoyed by the students and staff and could be a standalone curriculum. It was introduced to Curriculum Council in April and was received well. Lastly, we also have the Michigan Open Book online textbooks that were created by Michigan teachers within the last few years. They were placed in Google folders for each grade level and have a variety of media within each book. Staff was able to make a copy of the book. They could attach it to their Google Classroom, and that way each student would have their own copy. Students are then able to, again, take notes, highlight, and as long as it's downloaded with Kami, they could keep it in their Google folders as they continue to grow. This was received well from the staff that had tried it, especially in the lower grade levels that were not able to use Discovery Education. Challenges. Using the MC3 MESA units as our main resource was a tremendous challenge. It was wonderful wealth of information. However, it's teacher-led, mainly through lecture delivery, and not very engaging for many students and staff, nor a resource that we felt follows best practices without additions that staff needed to find or create. Many staff tend to steer away from it completely because it's so dry. It's also frustrating because it's one huge binder that's been printed off, and when the MC3 MESA units online update, the binder does not. When they do go to use the resource suggested, it may no longer be there, which is why many staff avoid using it. Many teachers are reinventing the wheel and spending their own money to cover the curriculum. This was the main reason I started looking into with the committee for something else that would be following best practices, and teachers and students would enjoy teaching and learning from it because it would be engaging. MC3 and MESA has been a very large challenge in the social studies area. Recommendations for next year. We were looking for support to have the resource for teachers to follow best practice that is engaging for students, one that is able to differentiate and meet all learners. If we could consider researching and looking around for programs that are more beneficial than what we have right now, that would be wonderful. Support needed from each building would also be an additional plus. We'd like to see at least one member from each building represented on the digital meetings so that we know for sure that every meeting or every building is being represented and they get the same information on each page. We did look at a few programs that we would be interested in piloting and looking that would meet all learners, that would have a huge ELA component, so it'd be cross-curricular, and I think that is it. When?
Secondary social studies, both the middle schools participated in National History Day, which is a series of competitions at local, county, state, and national levels, which allows students to highlight the research of historical scholars. Historians at each level provide valuable feedback to students on the writing process and on the quality of research being conducted. History Day is a year-long project that enables students to showcase their knowledge through displaying 21st century learning skills, such as analyzing primary and secondary sources, conducting historical research, composing persuasive and informational texts, and public speaking. The state finals were held in Bay City back in the spring in April 28th. 10 Franklin students qualified, 17 advanced, and will be participating in the state competition. Franklin hosted the City of Westland 18th District Court for Constitution Day. Students had a chance to witness live court cases, had the ability to interview the judges about the outcome of each case and the role that the judicial branch plays in our country's government. Franklin took their 8th graders to Washington, D.C. Stevenson took their 8th graders to Philadelphia and Gettysburg. Both high schools held voter registration drives, which were huge. The world history teachers are continuing to implement a standards-based grading. One huge accomplishment is that we started meeting again on a regular basis. We hadn't had any meetings for over a year until I took over in January. A challenge is the standards. They should have been voted on this year. They are being pushed back again. So we are kind of in limbo with that and where to go. Other than that, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
I have
So
a
that's it for
question.
that group. Thank you.
I have a
If you stay
question.
right there, some of the trustees have questions. Dr. Weaver?
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Brohl. It looks like a Herculean task, but I'm sure one you're equal to. My question is, are we ready for the start of the school year with the third grade reading law and curriculum?
Good question. We've worked the last year to develop cut scores, to work through drafts of the IRIP, the individualized reading plan that students will need, and staying ahead of those things. The curriculum guide that we have will serve the purpose of letting staff know what needs to be taught and when. And before the end of the school year last year, our elementary schools were presented with the essential literacy practices, which are key to getting our young kids to understand the key concepts in reading, writing, literacy as a whole. And then we have a great presenter that's going to kick that off for us on August 27th, Dr. Nell Duke, to kind of give us that kickstart and that reminder that literacy is so essential.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Hines, just speak a little louder.
Well, I'd like to thank you all for coming here today, and I like that you guys are all working on one accord. I just have one question, because I am concerned about the proficiency in the test. What about getting the stamina up with the children when it comes to taking the test? Because I was really concerned about like that. Do you guys have any plans on how to help the children with the stamina for taking standardized tests?
Good question. I think one of the key pieces is just teaching them stamina and endurance in general. And that's something that with Readers and Writers Workshop that we build into our daily practices is stamina. That's language that we teach our kindergartners, our first graders, and all the way up, because they have to have that sustained time to read, the sustained time to write, and along the way they'll also be practicing test-taking skills. But what we do on a day-to-day basis, we're building up their endurance, and then paired with actually teaching them the skills, how to take a test. So it's not brand new when they see it. Helps them be successful when they get in front of that test.
Thank you. Mr. Buckaloo?
A comment and maybe a comment.
Okay.
I know most of this work was done last year, but I appreciate the fact that you folks got together, what, a week and a half before you have to report back to work, and you just put in some freebie time, and you put this together for us. I really appreciate this presentation. I noticed, Ms. Fruttenborough, that among your challenges is the uncertainty of the new standards.
Yes.
Good luck with that. These have been in flux for over 30 years now. We have been going round and round and round since the legislature came up with something called Public Act 39, back when I was young. And it just changes, as you know, week to week, if not day to day. So teach what you teach it well, and as Dr. Weaver suggested, we need to really work on our third grade reading proficiency. I thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you again. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Holt, you have another presentation?
Yes. So coming around to you now is the 5-year project timeline. And so it's the draft of our first working draft or shareable draft of our 5-year plan for the school district and the 6 areas, include in the 6 departments that we have here district-wide. So I wanted to make sure that everyone on the board, and there are some extra copies for the community as well if you would like a few copies of this. But what it does is it begins to outline for everyone what it is that we're doing within each department over the next 5 years, knowing that this is actually a very fluid document for us to work from and work through. So within standards, learning, and innovation, as that has been discussed, our major area of focus is literacy. We must ensure that all of our children are literate. As we know, the consequences for our children not being literate are too grave for us not to move forward. And so what you see there is a progression of moving from what we have worked on last year is a scope and sequence, and coming here and trying to figure out what it is that we teach to who and when. It was very difficult to ascertain what is being taught in all of our classrooms, when is it being taught, and how are we actually collaborating around learning. Another piece that was a challenge is understanding how we discuss student achievement data, particularly on the formative level of having benchmark assessments on a regular basis. We can't wait till the end and test it and see what happens on the M-STEP test. We need to know progressively what's happening, and we need to be able to compare effective practices throughout the district. That isn't possible if we don't have an effective scope and sequence. The biggest difference between a scope and sequence and like a pacing guide is that scope and sequences are not lockstep. It kind of gives them just an idea of what standards we need to be hitting at what particular time. This next year, as you can see, our focus is going to be on implementing that scope and sequence, developing benchmark assessments, and this is all being done through the implementation of additional support at the school site through the instructional coaches. So in the first two departments, you'll see that there are additional staff to be able to help and support in this work. The other piece that is living in standards, learning, and innovation is the partnership agreement. As we know, in September, we begin, well, next week, we begin our time in the partnership agreement. And currently, we have Hoover that is in the partnership agreement, and we are moving Tinkham in because they did qualify for the partnership agreement. And we're still in conversations about whether or not we're going to look at Adams as well. The state has given us those additional 2 schools to consider. And so we'll be looking further into what we can do with that. And we have 21H grant money that we just received in the tune of $139,000 to assist with these efforts. Moving into the 1920 school year, you'll see that there's a difference between when we're developing something and when we're implementing something. And so development obviously happens before implementation. And this year and next year, we're really looking also deeply into our special education programs and ensuring that we are serving and meeting the needs of our special education students who, as we know, are general education students first. One of the big shifts from last year, or 17-18, is shifting special education from being a standalone department to moving it into instruction and having it fully integrated in the work of instruction. We cannot continue to move forward with thinking of special education or our specialized learners as an afterthought. They have to be considered in the initial conversation as we're rolling out any of these efforts. And finally, I'll touch very briefly, because we've heard many presentations on the instructional coaches. The role of the instructional coaches is to do just that, to help our teachers, help our learners. And it's also to help our principals who are trying to get into classrooms to have that extra set of arms and eyes and ears inside of the classroom. But the coach-teacher relationship is one that is being nurtured between those two, because it's very hard to be coached and supervised by the same person. And so research from the Center for Educational Leadership has pointed out, which is the model that we're using, because it was what was handed to me here, so it's fine, and it's a great model, but it really speaks deeply about you have to separate these 2 roles, especially in a developing environment where trust is not already established. And so in order to further establish trust, we need to have someone that our teachers can go to and be a vulnerable learner, and then someone who is actually doing the supervisorial role. As you move forward and build more trust as an organization, those roles can be combined or meshed, but not when you're trying to establish trust as an organization. So that is the first kind of line here. Then you see that each one of these efforts is going to be assessed through the academic return on investment process. So just like any other initiative that we're doing, we are going to assess how does instructional coach work. So beginning in the 2021-2022, golly, it's a 21-22 school year, we'll begin the AROI on instructional coaches. So we'll be collecting the data over time and then see, is this effective, is it not? How are we doing? Do we need to continue with this? And how are we going to move forward with it if we move forward with it? So that's that first line. Any questions on that first one? Okay. Moving towards the next one, which is the climate, culture, social emotional learning supports. So as you can see with the 5-year plan here, the focus here is on building communities in our schools and connecting the community to our schools. So last year we started with the administrative team and our central office team learning about restorative practices. As you know, because Dr. Townsend has brought it up every time he speaks, that restorative practices is now part of the law. And it's very difficult to implement a part of the law if you don't know what it is or you haven't been trained in it. And so the first step was to bring restorative practices training in with our administrators. They also received training from Dr. Sediel on combining the Huss's cognitive rigor matrix and Webb's depth of knowledge and really looking at how we assess instruction. That was probably more for the gray section. Moving into this year, we are really refining our multi-tiered system of supports with our schools. Multi-tiered system of supports is the umbrella term that we use in education to talk about academic, social-emotional, and behavioral interventions. So when we hear that behavior is a challenge and what are we going to do with it, we have to develop a support model in order to address that both centrally and at the school sites and at home, because behavior starts at home. And so so bringing that full circle is going to be one of the main roles of the climate and culture coaches and the parent liaisons working together. Parent liaisons are working on the home piece. The climate and culture coaches are working side by side with our teachers, administrators, and at times our students when we have to do small groups to help build their social, emotional, and behavioral skill sets. So you can see here that they have a litany of projects that they are beginning implementation of. Then as you move through, the other piece pretty large here is visual and performing arts. We have amazing visual and performing arts programs here, and we have not really capitalized on them as well as we could or should. For example, in one of our programs, we haven't provided a funding for new instruments or new materials in several years. As we know, visual and performing arts programs are kind of costly. And so if you don't put the investment in, it's very difficult to expect a high return on that if we're not putting something into that, or we're expecting them to raise the funds on their own. So we're not expecting them to raise the funds, but we really do need to figure out what does that plan need to look like moving forward to really elevate this to a level that we can work with. Another huge effort here is trauma and crisis prevention, identification, and then ultimately just dealing with the trauma and the crisis that we have, both on the parts of students, but also on the parts of adults. Adults don't live in a bubble. There are a lot of things that are very challenging for us as adults, and so we need to figure out a way to be able to address those challenges. Having people that are trained to be able to do that is going to be huge this year. They just started their first training today with the climate and culture coaches, with the restorative practices, and if I do say so myself, it is a powerful, diverse, and eclectic group. They just range in so many different skill sets, and I think it's going to be a very powerful addition to our school district. As you can see, also, AROI is already being planned for the programs that we're implementing, meaning we're not just going to implement programs and then, just kind of hope and pray. We have to really look at how are we measuring these over time, and then when it comes time to do the academic return on investment, truly assessing and seeing, is this working, is it not, is it actually improving student achievement, and if it is, great, what do we need to do to enhance it and move forward? If it's not, what needs to happen, or does it need to continue? So the AROI on many of these, again, begins in that 21-22 school year, with the idea being that it takes 3 to 5 years to implement something fully and well in any situation. So we're looking at the 3-year mark with this being year 1. Any questions on climate and culture and social emotional learning? There's a lot there. I'm kind of giving you a bird's eye view, but I just want to make sure it's clear. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Can I comment on the restorative practices thing? I believe that really is the wave of the future. I think we need to do that. And as you know, we need to sell this. Mm-hmm. We need to teach it, reteach it, and then teach it again. And it's really going to take somewhat of a mind change on the part of our staff to truly buy into this. It's not going to be an easy thing, as you know. Mm-hmm. So I hope we're successful in doing this.
Agreed. And that's part of the reason we start with leadership. So last year, starting with shifting the mindsets of leadership, and they are continuing with their training. So it's not, one thing with restorative practices is it's not a one-stop shop. It's not one of those trainings where you just kind of spray and pray. They went through their first year. Now they're going through. They're going to be going through their second year. And some of our climate and culture coaches and some of our teacher leaders and I should say educators, because educators covers the gamut, because it could be anything from our food service workers to our bus drivers, our para-educators. They're going to begin that first wave of training. And so we just keep having them go through the waves of training. The other piece is that anything that is not practiced once you've trained becomes just an exercise in futility. So they have to keep practicing it on a regular basis. That's where the coach comes in, because the coach may or may not do the training. It just depends on the level of the coach, but they can definitely come be that guide on the side and say, okay, now you're trying to do your community building circles in the classroom. This is how that looks. Or you've had, a blow up in your classroom for whatever reason. Maybe Johnny had a moment, something happened with him. This is how you bring that back so that you can get back to the teaching and learning from the grade section. We have to be able to increase student achievement. And at the end of the day, kids who are either hungry or frustrated or tired, teachers or educators who are frustrated in any way or not feeling supported, you put both of those in the same room, that's going to be a problem. But if we continuously move that training forward and provide our leadership with the skills to be able to allow them to learn, because this is a learning process, and they're going to fumble, they're going to stumble, sometimes they may even fall. And our job is to pick them up, dust them off, and keep them going, not criticize and castigate or do any of those measures. So learning different skill sets in order to be able to do that so that we are truly being supportive at all levels. Any other questions or thoughts? Okay. So moving into the green section, green for money, which is business, maintenance, and instructional operations. And truly, the large piece here is to look at, of course, last year we had food service and transportation, which were high areas or strategic goals from the 2016 to 2020 strategic plan that came prior to my existence. And we were very proud that we were able to kind of check those goals off. It doesn't mean that we're not moving forward in those areas and there's not work to do, but as far as it elevating to the level of being a strategic goal for the district, food service and transportation, at least these parts of them are able to move forward. This year we also did the onboarding, evaluation, and monitoring procedures for the AROI process, meaning if we're going to do academic return on investment, we need to know how that's going to look for us as a district. And so this year we developed the processes and we put some of our programs through them, and we're going to continue with that throughout the course of the next 5 years. Is it going to shift? Yes. As the process needs to shift, because sometimes it fits certain things and sometimes it doesn't, and we need to adjust. But the process exists now. This next year, the big thing, bond. We have to really focus on what's going to happen with our bond this year. As we know with our finances, in order for us to be able to provide and employee compensation is coming in the next section, but one of the major challenges is shifting some of our maintenance operations, technology, busing expenditures over into the bond so that we can utilize the other funds for program improvements. And yes, part of the program improvements does involve increased compensation. The great thing about our bond team, just so everyone knows, meets every Thursday at 1 p.m. Every Thursday, 1 p.m. So if you want to be part of the bond committee, come on down. We are definitely the action team. I shouldn't say committee, it's the action team. They are really looking forward to continuing to move that bond forward. So you can see here the major points for BMIO is ensure resources support staff compensation. This year it's determined, we were through determining the feasibility of a bond issue, and this year it is actually passing the bond issue. Also looking at, because there is such an intricate link between special education and funding, special education funding is an area of focus for the department this year. We really need to look at how are we truly staffing our classrooms, how are we meeting the needs of our neediest learners. As such, the other piece is the budgeting process and ensuring that it's priority-based and AROI is used. This year, we went to a zero-based budgeting process. It was messy, it was challenging, but at the end of the day, what we are still working through is ensuring that every school is receiving more general fund dollars than they have in the past, and also that we're ensuring that the expenditure of their title dollars is being done completely, so we're not having that end of the year rush to purchase, so that we set it up so that the title dollars are completely spent, and then we subsidize it with, we're not subsidized, but we ensure that the general fund dollars are being used appropriately for special education and other needs. Also, the general education dollars are a lot more fluid to use. So when you hear that, oh, the money's there, but you can only use it for this, this, and this, well, with general fund dollars, they can use it for whatever expenditures they like, and they can change their mind. So here's the idea. If you decide that you want to go on a field trip, let's say a teacher has decided they want to go to a field trip to the zoo, the Detroit Zoo. You know, animal unit, I'm not going to pick a grade level, but then let's say they find tickets online or however they work it, and they realize that going to, I don't know, what's the other, I think the Toledo one is the other one? Okay, I'm still learning. So they decide they're going to go to the Toledo Zoo instead. Maybe they have an exhibit or whatever it is that's working that we didn't know in April of the year before, that in January there was going to be this amazing walrus exhibit. I'm just throwing something out there. Well, with title fund dollars, it's very hard for a teacher or an educator to change their mind. With general fund dollars, it's a lot easier process. It's a lot less stressful on our educators if they decide they want to do something different. We want to offer our educators that type of autonomy. Moving forward, the school of choice and registration processes, we want to ensure that it's nice and seamless. This year has gone very well in the sense of trying to get the online registration, but it is still a challenge. And so we want to make sure that that's done appropriately and correctly. Any questions on that? All right. So moving forward on the next page, you see that we have two other departments. I'm going to go to the bottom department first, the yellow one, and then I'll go to the pink one up there. The Employee, Community, and Governmental Relations department is one that I've expanded this year to really hone in on the community part of Wayne Westland Community Schools. And so last year we really focused on the parts of the strategic plan that needed to be done in order for us to be able to move forward with the pieces of the plan this year, like the bond measure. And so we developed our processes for staff attrition, attraction, and retention. We also developed some internal rewards programs for our staff, and we're continuously looking at doing more with that. We went from one person and one family resource center for over 11,000 children and families to now increasing that to 2 people here at the central office that do go to the school sites and work with our families, and 3 site-based family resource centers that we'll have now, one at John Glenn, one at Taft, and of course the one at Adams. This is to ensure our families have access to the services that we know that they need from us or from someone. It may or may not be our responsibility, but we know it helps our kids and it helps our families. And we have had more traffic in our family resource centers this year than we have in many years past. So the word is getting out that you can get help here in Wayne Westland. We will support and work with the whole child. The other piece of this is it's the other part of the wraparound services. We all know that with mental health and trauma on the rise in our community, but also nationwide, we need to be able to provide those wraparound supports. So we have created the Family and Community Engagement Department, aka FACE, and we also in our Family and Community Engagement Department lives our after-school programs. So ensuring the connection between our after-school programs and our instructional programs is going to be very key this year, especially in the area of social emotional learning. I actually just met with all the site directors from, trying to remember if I met with Champions or Bright Futures. I have one that I did and one that I'm doing, so I can't remember all the time which one I did. But they were very clear and very excited about the push for social emotional learning. And they have been doing it for some time with our children, and now having a very concerted effort is going to help moving forward. This year, it's really trying to expand our recruitment efforts to ensure that we are recruiting from all walks of life. We know that there is a teacher shortage, a big teacher shortage. So big that the Michigan Department of Education had a educator job fair last Thursday. First time in the state that we've had that level of a job fair. So it's not a Wayne Westland thing. It's not a Wayne County thing. It's a Michigan United States kind of thing. And so really attracting people to the profession. Our special education professionals are very difficult to find these days, so we want to make sure that we are addressing those needs. And the other piece that employee and community engagement is doing is, of course, they're meeting with the various groups in the community, but also revamping our employee wellness program. Hurt people, and we have to make sure our employees are healthy. Healthy mentally, healthy physically, and healthy emotionally. And so contributing to that and really thinking about how are our practices contributing to the health and wellness of our employees is something that this team, when I tell you they constantly remind us and are constantly gut checking all levels of administration, staff, and the community around how we move forward effectively there. Any questions on that? Its purpose. All right, the last piece here is our administrative assistance team, also known as the Super Six. This is a team that I recently added to the executive cabinet through the addition of Mrs. Cheryl Watson on the executive cabinet team. The initial reason for that is because when I looked at the data regarding the employees here in the district, I was looking for who is the most consistent. Who has the most consistent knowledge within the district? And the more I looked, and the least amount of turnover in their ranks. And the one that has the least amount of turnover, or had the least amount of turnover in their ranks, was the secretary group, especially here in central office. So I needed to figure out a way, if administrators are in constant flux, and if our teaching staff is in flux, who is going to be that stable force to be able to keep the district afloat and remind us of what has happened before? It's our secretarial group, our administrative assistant group. And so when we started to talk, we realized that the training for our administrative assistant group had taken some time, hadn't occurred for some time. And so we wanted to reinstate some training and reinstitute the power of our secretaries to truly empower them to lead various efforts inside of the buildings. They also have an extreme amount of institutional knowledge, and when empowered appropriately, they can really help move the needle on student achievement, because administrators can focus on what's happening in the classroom, and educators can focus on, again, what's happening in the classroom, and the administrative assistants can keep the operational sides of what's happening continuously in a smooth flow. And so Mrs. Watson leads that group this year. Last year they did a staff survey and we did a back to school workshop, but this year they're really looking at having, we have a complete professional learning calendar for clerical staff, just like every other unit. Our clerical staff also has professional learning that they're doing. They want to know about restorative practices, because chances are when a young student is having trouble and the principal is busy, who are they with? Secretary. And the secretary's looking at them and they're looking at them back. So what kind of strategies could they use? And the strategies within restorative practices are not specific to only an educator in the classroom. They're specific to any of us in this room. And so having them have the same training. Another huge piece was we went to Google. And it's no secret how much I love Google. But we needed to have a bit more of training opportunities for our staff in order to access the various parts of Google. So shifting over to Google was a source of consternation for many of our clerical folks who had been on either GroupWise or Outlook or other types of platforms, and we shifted their entire platform of how they do emails, how they do calendars, I mean, a lot of what they do. And so we wanted to provide some basic training, also to develop a system of standards of protocols and procedures for the group, so that if new people come in, they know how things are supposed to run here in Wayne Westland. So that's kind of the outlook, the overview of our 5-year plan moving forward within each department, and how we really are looking at shifting the face, not only of Wayne Westland, but also the face of our results. Any questions?
No.
Okay.
So does that complete your report?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Oh, did you have something, Mr. Cox?
No, I was just shooing a fly away.
Oh, okay. There's no room for
Trying not to
flies
be
in the
seen
meeting.
doing it.
All right, thank you, Dr. Holt. Moving on to item number 116.18, citizen comments, agenda items only. Remember that when we have citizen comments, whether it be the agenda items or later on, that you have 3 minutes, and that the board does not answer your questions right away, but that someone will get in contact with you soon as the meeting is over, and then get your information, and there will be follow-up. So is there anyone who has questions on agenda items only? Okay, Seeing none, moving on to item number 117.18, the consent agenda. At this time, I'll take a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cox,
Second.
support by Mr. Buckaloo. Any discussion?
I need to let you know that since I was absent at the last meeting, I've had a chance to watch on YouTube the meeting, so I am up to speed as to what occurred.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Madell,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo,
Yes.
Dr. Weaver,
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes, Ms. Walker,
Yes.
let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Moving on to item number 118.18, human resource items. Ms. Simmons, we have quite a few there.
Yes.
So starting with item 8, please.
Sure if this is working, so I'll try to speak loud. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Thanks.
Reach for it.
So there are several. I'm pleased to present to you 8 very qualified candidates for administrative positions that we have open throughout the district. Unfortunately, Ms. Mona Mallard, who we are recommending for review and approval for special education supervisor, was not able to join us this evening. But if you turn to page 22 in the board packet, I'd like to go over her experience in education.
22 or 19?
No, 20.
22, yeah, the
Okay.
pages are marked incorrect on that
Okay.
table over in the, next to their meetings. So Ms. Mallard possesses a Bachelor of Arts in Cognitive Impairments in Elementary Education from Eastern Michigan University. She also possesses a Master of Arts in the Master of Arts of Autism from Eastern Michigan University, as well as a Special Education Administration Certificate from Grand Valley University. She has been an SXI teacher with Dearborn Public Schools and most recently has served as an ASD teacher with Plymouth Canton Community Schools.
Okay. At this time, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cox. Any support? Supported by Ms. Hines. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Madell,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo,
Yes.
Dr. Weaver,
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes, Ms. Walker,
Yes.
let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item B, please.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. I present to you for review and approval for Special Education Supervisor, Ms. Heather Martinez-Verrier. Heather is a graduate of the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor with a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology. She has a Master's of Special Education and Emotional Impairment from Eastern Michigan University, as well as her Special Education Administration from Eastern Michigan University. She recently or currently serves as a teacher consultant and ECP teacher with Riverview Community Schools.
Okay. At this time, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Weaver, supported by Mr. Cox. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Hines, yes, Ms. Madell,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo,
Yes.
Dr. Weaver,
Yes.
Ms. Walker,
Yes.
let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Is Ms. Martin in the office? In the office.
Welcome.
Would you like to say something? You don't have to go all the way up. If you want, you can just grab the mic right here.
You're done, Ms.
And if you brought anybody with you, you can introduce them as well.
They would love that.
I am Heather Martinez-Verrier. I'm very eager to start my position here in Wayne Westland. I thank Dr. Holt as well as Nicole Moore, who couldn't be here tonight, for that opportunity. I have brought my family. My husband is in the corner over there. That's Ray. And my children, Jackson is 14, and I have 12-year-old twins, Hannah and Hunter, who I drug here to celebrate in this occasion with me. So I look forward to working with everybody here, as well as making an impact on our special ed services team. I believe in empowering others to be the best that they can be, and I look forward to that opportunity. Thank you again.
Thank you, and welcome to the Wayne Westland family. The reason we have you introduce your family is because family is the intricate part of any job, and without your family, it's hard to do any job. So we appreciate your family as much as we appreciate you. And once again, welcome to the Wayne Westland family.
Thank you.
Item C, please.
All right, thank you, Madam President. I present to you for review and approval Special Education Supervisor Deborah Herksack. We turn to page 24. Ms. Herksack is, she has an Associates of Science from Henry Ford Community College, a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and Communications from Eastern Michigan University, and a Master of Arts in Cross-Categorical Special Education from the University of Phoenix. She was employed previously as a district manager for Colgate-Palmolive. She served as a substitute for Walled Lake Consolidated School System, and most recently as a caseload teacher of students with autism at Walled Lake Consolidated School District.
Okay. At this time, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by
Support.
Mr. Cox, supported by Dr. Weaver. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Ms. Horzak? Hi. How are you?
Hi, how are you? All right, well, I just wanted to say thank you for the recommendation. I'm very excited to work for the Wayne Westland team. I like everything that I heard tonight. Unfortunately, I have two daughters that are, my one daughter is Olivia, graduating, she's in her senior year at Central Michigan, and she could not be here. And yes, and then my older daughter is an academic advisor at Walsh College working on her MBA, and she had clients or students coming in this evening, and she said I could maybe get there later, so I told her no. I also have my significant other here, Tom, and a very close friend of mine, Zena, so I want to thank them for coming to support me. And again, thank you. I look forward to being part of this team.
Thank you. Thank you, and welcome to the Wayne Westland family. Item D, please.
All right, thank you, Madam President. I present to you for review and approval for Franklin Middle School Principal, Mr. Kente Rosser. On page 25, you can find his data sheet. He is a graduate from Wayne State University with a Bachelor of Science in English Education and Speech Education, as well as possesses a Master of Arts in Educational Leadership from Wayne State University. He has previously served as an assistant principal for Pontiac School District, a principal in Inkster Public Schools, and most recently as an assistant principal with Harper Woods School District.
Okay. At this time, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cox, supported by Ms. Hines. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Mr. Rosser? Yes. Welcome to the Wayne Westland family. Thank you. Yes, you may go right there.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. Honored to serve. I'm looking forward to working with the team. Looking forward to it. I have with me my son, Kente Rosser Jr. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item E, please.
All right, thank you, Madam President. I present to you for review and approval Franklin Middle School Assistant Principal, Dr. Mary Jenkins Williams. On page 26, you will find her data sheet. She possesses a Bachelor of Business Administration from Mary Grove College, a Master of Arts in Teaching from Wayne State University, an Education Specialist in Administrative Leadership from Wayne State University, and a Doctor of Education from Walden University. She has served with the Detroit Board of Education as a lead content and grade level teacher, University Prep Science and Math High School as an instructional coach, Education Achievement Authority as the Director of Professional Development and Teacher Training, and most recently as an education consultant for Jenkins Williams Institute.
Okay, at this time, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Hines. Any support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Cox. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Walker? I'm sorry, Ms. Walker?
He can't vote, but I'll vote. Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Dr. Jenkins Williams. Hi, how are you? Welcome to the Wayne Westland family.
Thank you. I can talk louder.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to just thank the board, thank the superintendent, the interview committee for recommending me for this position. I am very, very excited to be the new assistant principal at Franklin Franklin Middle School. And I brought with me, I have a number of family members here, my best friend, my sister, my niece, nephew, my brother-in-law. I have another friend in the corner, another sister here. And so I'm so proud, I'm so excited. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to work with your students and help them prepare for high school and life.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, please, yes.
All right, thank you, Madam President. I present to you for review and approval for the Executive Director of Professional Learning and Accountability, Ms. Sherry Grove. Her data sheet can be found on page 27. She possesses a Bachelor of Science in Communication and Theater Arts from Eastern Michigan University, a Master of Arts in Educational Leadership from Eastern Michigan University, and a Master in the Art of Teaching from Mary Grove College. She has served with Wayne Westland Community Schools at John Glenn High School as a drama teacher and director, a 12th grade ELA co-teacher, and an assistant principal, and she is currently serving as our principal at Stevenson Middle School.
At this time, I'll take a motion.
Move approved.
Moved by Ms.
Support.
Hines, supported by Mr. Cox. Any discussion?
Yes. I just want to make a statement here. My statement has nothing to do with the employee because I believe her to be knowledgeable. However, I must vote no on this because I believe that it should be an open process and be posted.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Weaver. Any other discussion? Roll.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Are you sure you want to do this? You have done such a wonderful job at Stevenson,
Thank you.
but I understand professional growth.
I look forward to the opportunity to grow as an educator and leader and to help other educators and leaders grow.
Okay.
But trust me, you will be
I
missed.
will miss the kids dearly.
You will be missed.
Any other discussion? Mr. Buckle?
I share Dr. Weaver's concerns about the posting process.
At this time, I'll take a roll call vote.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
No?
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-1?
5-1.
5-1, sorry. 5-1.
Thank you. Motion carries. Ms. Grove, congratulations.
Thank you so much. And I thank you, Madam President, School Board, Dr. Holt, for this opportunity. Again, I look forward to growing as an educator and leader myself, but also helping others as we bring in new people to our district and into our family, helping them to grow as leaders and educators as well. And with me tonight, I have my husband, Kevin Gidley, who is also an educator in our district. Several of our Wayne Westland family who are here tonight, Lynn Pater, my son, Blake Grove, who is a senior this year at John Glenn High School. My other son is at marching band practice because our marching band director said, priorities, we have a game next week. So I support those 100%. So he's at marching band practice at John Glenn, a great friend and educator here in our Wayne Westland family as well, Heather Nimmergut.
Thank you.
All for coming and thank you for your support.
I know you'll do an amazing job.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Item G, please.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. I present to you for review and approval Assistant Superintendent of Business, Maintenance, and Instructional Operations, Ms. Stacy Witt. Her data sheet can be found on page 28. Ms. Witt possesses a Bachelor of Business Administration with a major in accounting from Baker College and a Master's of Business Administration in accounting from Baker College as well. She has worked with the Leona Group as a budget assistant and a staff accountant, the International Academy of Flint as a business manager, the Washtenaw Intermediate School District as a budget and finance manager, Genesee Intermediate School District as a shared time director of business services, and most recently at Schwartz Creek Community Schools as executive director of business and finance.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Ms.
Support.
Hines, supported by Dr. Weaver. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Ms. Witt, congratulations. Welcome to the Wayne Westland family.
Thank you so much.
I'm very excited to begin this job and join the Wayne Westland family here. And I'm super excited to start all the work and work every day to work hard and improve our business practices for the students here that we're serving and our other stakeholders such as the board and the community. But students first, always, every day. I keep that in the top priority, and I'll do my best for all the students here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have 2 teenage daughters, but they were unable to make it today, 14 and 16, and I wish they would have came.
Thank you. Welcome again.
Thank you.
Okay, where are we at? H, please.
All right, last but not least, I present to you, Madam President, for review and approval, Stevenson Middle School Principal, Miss Kimberly Dolman. Her data sheet can be found on page 29. Ms. Dolman possesses a Bachelor of Science in Secondary Math and Integrated Science from Central Michigan University, as well as a Master of Arts in Educational Leadership from Eastern Michigan University. She has been employed with Eastern Washtenaw Multicultural Academy as a math teacher, Father Gabriel Richard High School as a math teacher, and Wayne Westland Community Schools as a Tinkham ACE supervisor, and currently is the director of our alternative education program.
Okay. At this time, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Hines, supported by Dr. Weaver. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion passes. Ms. Dolman, did I see her? Oh, there you go. Oh,
I see she's excited.
yes, she is. Congratulations to you.
Thank you. Madam President, I have my children here with me tonight. It's my daughter Veronica, she's 1, and my son Axel is 3. I'm very honored to be standing here right now, and I really appreciate all of your support. I really do. And I'm so looking forward to starting the school year as principal at Stevenson. Go Saints!
Thank you again. I know that was a lot. Going on to item number 119.18, review and approval of business services. Who's going to cover? Are you going to? Dr. Holt? Okay.
So, good evening.
Oh, it's
No
okay.
problem. She's all right. As you can see on page 30 of your packet, we have the note from Dr. Kempton regarding the purchase of the buses. So this bus purchase was actually initially brought to the board for approval to purchase the buses. Then we have to come back with every one of these situations to get board approval to move that expense to the bond. And that has to be done within 60 days of the purchase. So what we have in front of us today is the attached resolution. We are requesting the board approve the reimbursement of the general fund, the cost of the final payment, which was $723,995 for buses out of the 2018 bond should it pass.
At this time, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cox. Any support?
Support.
Support by Mrs. Madell. Any discussion?
Discussion, Madam President. We believe and we're looking forward to this bond passing. So if something should happen, God forbid, this money comes out of general fund. Will it affect raises when we meet with our employees? That's my question.
Okay. So we don't have anyone here from the business department right
I
now.
understand that,
So we'll
but
have
I'm-
someone get back with you with that.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion?
We have to buy buses. That's a right now decision. Other decisions will have to take their place in the pecking order. This is first. It would be nice if we could reimburse the general fund with the bond money. That certainly is my desire, but we have to have buses.
Yeah. I agree with you, Mr. Buffalo. Safety, we have to have safe buses to get our children around, and as you have heard several times, the children are the first priority. So if there isn't any more discussion at this time, I'll take a roll call vote.
Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you, motion carries. Moving on to item number 120.18, designation of delegates for the 2018 MASB Delegate Assembly. So as each of you know, we have our fall conference coming up, and that's where we go and then we take our classes for our certifications to be board members. So on Thursday, November 1st, we need delegates for the Delegate Assembly where we vote on different policies that will affect the schools in Michigan. And so I guess the way we can do this is who plans on going to fall conference. So we have Dr. Weaver going, we have Ms. Medell going, Mr. Buckaloo, and myself. So what we'll do is we'll all four be delegates. And if you decide, I know you depend on your work schedule, if you decide to come, we'll have you as an alternate, if that's okay with you. So does everyone agree with that?
If she's able to come, I can be an alternate. That would be fine with me.
Okay. So, well, we have four. Actually,
I understand.
We have four. We are allowed to have 4 delegates.
We can even have 3 alternates if
Yeah.
push comes to shove.
So let the records show that we have delegates as being Dr. Weaver, Ms. Medell, Mr. Buckaloo, myself, and then we'll have Ms. Hines as an alternate delegate. All right. Moving on to item number 121.18, 2018-2019 staff recognition and appreciation dates. Dr. Holt.
So you see here that we have the dates for the proposed recognition of staff. So we are asking that the board approve the above listed dates to recognize the individual employee groups for the important contributions they make to the overall success of our district.
Okay. At this time, I'll take a motion. Moved by Ms. Hines, supported by Dr. Weaver. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Medell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item number 122.18, Head Start for the monthly report. Mrs. Medell.
As required by federal law, you have been given a copy of the monthly expense report. And I know that they're now in the process of registering kids for this next school year. So if you are interested and qualified, please give them a call.
Okay. So we'll need a motion to pass her report.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Hines.
Support.
Support by Mr. Cox. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Medell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item number 123.18, Superintendent report. Dr. Holt.
Here we go. So I wanted to, thank you, Madam President. I wanted to respond to the citizens' comments from the July 30th Board of Education meeting. The following concerns and questions were raised at or during the citizens' comments portions of the agenda. The following is a list of the concerns and questions and the responses that we have provided. The first question came from Heather Hunt regarding the lack of follow-through with plans made at TAG parent meetings and transportation not being available to TAG students. Mrs. Kate Brawl, Executive Director of Standards Learning and Innovation, emailed the parent, then had a meeting with her. Ideas for the TAG meetings moving forward include marketing strategies for the TAG program, the updated TAG program process, using standards from the National Association for Gifted Children, and scheduling parent meetings specifically about options beyond 6th grade were topics that were discussed. Mrs. Brawl also assured Ms. Hunt that there is busing available for TAG students and provided her with the form which needs to be completed to request it for her child. I was unaware as to whether or not, and I'd have to check with Mrs. Brawl as to whether or not Mrs. Hunt is one of the parents that attends is Ms. Hunt one of the parents that regularly attends the meetings?
Yes.
Okay, and so we do have regular meetings with our talented and gifted families that are occurring monthly. And so there have been several meetings that have occurred, and Mrs. Sproul followed up with her. The second question was from a Jennifer Holland, who asked on behalf of her daughter about the disproportionate number of minority children in the TAG program and how bullying is being addressed in the schools. Mrs. Sproul had a phone conversation with Mrs. Holland and explained that going forward, notes will be sent directly to parents who scored above the 80th percentile on the NWEA MAPS assessment. Regarding how bullying is being addressed in the schools, Ms. Sproul shared the district-wide initiatives, which include a climate and culture coach in every school, training on restorative practices for all administrators and educators so that they can implement them with the students, and the use of community building circles, which are being used at the administrative meetings, staff meetings, and at the schools and the classrooms with the students. We also have a revised district handbook, which is another term for a code of conduct, but we chose the term district handbook, which I'll be sharing in a few moments, a bit more with the group, but that is also part of our plan moving forward to ensure we address bullying throughout the schools. The third question came from Mrs. Amber Spuler, regarding the director vacancies in the special education department. Mrs. Jennifer Curry, Assistant Superintendent of Standards Learning and Innovation, spoke with Ms. Spuler after the meeting on July 30th and shared that the district was in the process of hiring staff. As you can see from tonight's meeting, we have all of the positions, with the exception of the Director of Preschool position that have been filled. And I'll speak in a moment about what's going to happen with Stottlemyre. The question also came from T. Damagalski. And she didn't fill out a blue form, but I remember her asking the question about the school of choice procedure. This procedure for the school of choice, if you go to our district website under Board of Education, and you click under board policies, they're getting there to make sure that everybody can see it. In the board policy manual, it's on page 6 of the board policy manual, and it's on page, which you can see there was our school of choice procedure on page 6. There we go. And then on page 3 of the Administrative Guidelines Handbook, you'll find which can be found here on the website, you will see our School of Choice procedure. Both of these publications can be found on the district websites. These procedures have not changed. District information is being shared with all employees in the weekly communique called This Week in Wayne Westland. Any questions regarding School of Choice can be directed to our Director of Student Services, which is Mr. Mark Miller, whom we have ensured has a district-provided cell phone that we can contact him day or night with, because issues of student conduct come up, whether kids are at a football game or basketball game, during the school day, during outside of the school day. So we wanted to make sure that our staff had contact with Mr. Miller. And so nothing has changed with our School of Choice procedures. And in fact, this year we have a bit more of the site level involvement in School of Choice. So moving forward, a couple of things that I want to speak to and show you some of the great things that we have done this year with Wayne Westland. So first of all, I want to say that I'm very excited that all of our openings will be filled with currently staffed employees, and we have 3 retirees. Yes, 3 retirees that are returning to help us open up. One is Mark Caesar will be helping us to open up Tinkham Educational Center because Mrs. Doman is going to Stevenson. So I'm very glad that Mr. Caesar is going to be coming back for the next month or so to help us out with that one. We have Dr. Johnny Somerville, who will be coming back to help us out with Stottlemyre, to open up Stottlemyre for us. I got you. And the other one is we have Mrs. Denise Brennan. I'm saying the name right? Mrs. Denise Brennan, who is coming to help us with the John Glenn Assistant Principal role, so we can get that filled with someone qualified to be able to do master scheduling and things like that. So I'm very proud to announce that all of our site level vacancies are for administration have been filled, and we will start the year fully staffed in our schools. I also wanted to share a piece around because it was brought up here, and the choice to utilize my ability as a superintendent to appoint a position. It is very important for me to have all of our site level positions filled. And as such, I did utilize my discretion in appointing Ms. Grove to this position without posting the position, because it was more important for me to make sure that Stevenson was filled and that Stevenson's staff had an opportunity to interview and pick their selection. And with time running short, that was my priority. So moving forward, we have several things that we have been working on over the course of this summer to ensure that our staff have materials that will help them move forward. So the first of which I'm very excited to announce, every staff member and every family will receive a copy of our district handbook. Isn't it pretty? It'll be all nice. It's not, this is just the stapled version of it. And so each board member, just so you all know, each board member received a packet like this with all of the publications and materials that we have been completing to ensure that the processes, systems, and procedures here in Wayne Westland are clear for everyone. So the first of which is the district handbook. So this district handbook is for every parent, every teacher, every educator in our district to understand what are the basics and policies and procedures regarding behavior, dress code, expectations, etc. for our district. Another piece that has been requested, because with a lot of the changes that have happened, folks are going, oh my goodness, I don't know who to call, and who is so-and-so, and where do I go for X, Y, and Z? So what we did online, I know Jenny's moving real fast, because all of this, everything I'm about to show you is online as well, okay? So she went from the district handbook. Jenny, I'm going to the name and face directory next. Thank you. So the name and face directory, which Jenny's pulling up on the screen, you can see that what we've done, I won't put my face up there first. I'll use Linda. Here we go. So this is the Business Maintenance and Instructional Operations Department. And as you can see with this, it's also online. They can see who the person is, what's their email, what's their phone number, and what are all the duties that that person is responsible for. And we have this for every single person in every department. And so some folks are like, hey, I didn't know who that person was. Now you can see what that person looks like, you can see, and you know what they do. So we are working on making this document searchable, but it is available. As you can see, she's pulling it up online here. So you can see there's Jill's department, and if you scroll up, you'll see Mrs. Riley, and you'll be able to see Mrs. Peterson, Carrie Matzik, and who every person is and what it is that they are responsible for covering. In our secretarial in-service, which is coming up later on this week, this was a huge request from particularly the secretaries mostly, and then other staff as well. But they really wanted to know, okay, I've typically gone to this person. Who do I go to now? Well, not only do you know who to go to, and it's going to take some reading because you got to read to lead, but you also know what they look like. So in case you see them in the grocery store, you can just pop up, go, hey, I wanted to know about X, Y, and Z. So you have that for each of the, well, it happens.
Yes, I know.
So you have it for the Office of Academic Excellence, you have it for Employee Community Government Relations, and you also have it for myself and Cheryl and Tamara, who are in my office. So hopefully that will help folks know a little bit more about who do I go to and when. And so the next piece I wanted to show you is, before I get to the big ones, we also have our family and community engagement flyers. So you'll see that we have lots of publications that are coming out to help our families and our community understand what it is that family and community engagement does. So this is about the 3 ways any organization can come and support our schools. And this has to do with getting people support, financial support, etc. So if any community members are wondering, hey, what can I do to help? You can hand them one of these and go, anything on this list, or anything you come up with, long as it's legal. Just saying, we can help, but you got to make sure that we do it the right way. Another piece that I'm very, very excited about that is happening is the revamping or the reinvigoration of our literacy corps. Literacy Corps, and so you see that you might see these flyers around. This has to do with volunteers that would come in and really help with literacy with our students. So it might be many of them are our senior citizens in the community, and they come and they read our kids' books, they help them read, they just really share their joy of reading with our young people. And it also helps with climate and culture, because you know what? People don't act up when they go to grandma's house. Right. And so we need to bring all of our senior citizens into our schools to really help us out, and literacy is the best and easiest way for our folks to get in. So whether you have 10 minutes a month or 30 minutes a week, whatever it is, we'll take it, and we invite you to become a part of that. There is a volunteer form, and we do have to go through a very small background check that happens through HR. There's no cost to any of our community, but they also have little lanyards. I mean, it really is a thing in our community. So Literacy Corps is huge for us. This one is, Oh, this is our tag program bookmark. So again, we're really trying to advertise the great things that are happening and spread good news like it's bad news. So with our, if your child is a gifted learner, you know what the process is to get them identified for tag. And then there are also a few resources on the bookmark to help our families. Again, family and community engagement. They have a brochure to help you know what it is that our family and community engagement department can provide to our schools, what they can provide to our families in their homes, and it also has a list of different numbers that folks can reach for help and support. Because oftentimes it's not easy to go to someone you don't know and say, I need help. And so we here in Wayne Westland want to make that as easy as possible, because the more we address those outside of the classroom needs, the better we can perform inside of the classroom. I also, this is one of my favorites. I walked in today and saw these, the I Believe in Wayne Westland decals. I don't know what you call these stickers.
Window clings.
Window clings, there you go. So we have quite a few of those that are coming out. And then finally, or not finally, our Connections. This is our newest edition of Connections, which will be reaching our homes in the next week. I believe it's supposed to get there right before the first day of school next week. And in this edition of Connections, I just want to draw our attention to our community our community and advisory meetings. So on the second page, and we have a copy out here in the front for everybody, we've been talking about our action teams. We need our community to be involved in Wayne Westland. And so right now we have 11 action teams. One of them is the bond, which is typically we have 10, but because this is a bond year, we have added the bond advisory. And you can know where they meet, who to connect if you want, who to contact if you want to be connected. So she's scrolling up to it. And there it is. So you can find out exactly who to go to in order to be connected with the various groups, or you can fill out a form that's right here at the board office. And I believe the form is also online if you want to be involved in the various action teams. And we say action teams, and I'm still getting my and advisories, I'm still getting my words around that, because we are about action here. We've talked about what the work that needs to be done. We've all conversed about it. We've done, I recently looked at all of the posters that were left for me from the previous person who held my position, and there was a lot of collaboration, a lot of work that was put into bringing folks together. And now that work needs to get done. And so we've really now focused on being action oriented as we move forward. Another piece that that the board has in their packet and is available for the community is the bond, frequently asked questions. So questions about what is happening with our bond, what are we going to do with the funds, what kind of projects are we looking at doing, and I believe also in here is part of, what would happen. I think there's a section here around what happens if we're not able to get the bond and the impact on the general fund. And so there's significant challenges that we have in moving forward, but the bond is going to help us. And so being able to provide this for our community, and being able to do this by paying less than we were paying in 2016. Did y'all hear me? Less than what we were paying in 2016 moving forward. So that's huge for us as a community, because oftentimes in these kind of tight financial circumstances, it's very difficult to ask, for more money. But we do need to make sure that our schools are taken care of and that the maintenance and operations expenses are correct moving forward. And then there's also a list of do's and don'ts, but the community didn't receive that. That's just for you. Two things I'm very, very excited about. One, with what happened earlier last year with the various threats that were going on, and prayerfully we won't have to deal with that ever again, but if we did, we wanted to make sure that our emergency response information was up to date. And so this is not something that you will find on the website. Again, this is not something you will find on the website. Of course not. This is our emergency response. We don't tell everybody what our emergency response is. But please know that it does exist at every school site, and we put it in a binder now so that it can continuously be updated. And we also made it very position-oriented as opposed to people-oriented so that we can continue to move forward. And finally, this is one that personally I'm very excited about, because I honestly didn't think it was going to happen as fast as it did. And it truly speaks to the amazing work of our communications team, which is a team of 3 people for the entire district of 11,000 students. We have the team led by Mrs. Jenny Johnson, who is our Director of Communications over here, and Jordan Ewert and Nick Appleby, our graphic designer and technician that work with with everything that we're doing. And they the document I'm most proud of is this first week of school document. What this does is it provides our educators with if you open up the table of contents, and yes, it is online and you can search it now, but if you look at the table of contents just to start, you can see that we have provided a rationale for why we are doing what we're doing with climate and culture, a framework with some definitions for terms. So for example, when I say educators, what do I mean? Essentially, I mean anybody that receives a paycheck from Wayne Westland, you're an educator. That's what we do. We're in the education business, so we have educators with various titles. It also talks about our goals and outcomes and effective practices, but then the piece, the kind of meat and potatoes of this is strategies and lesson plans. So if I can actually have various strategies that educators can use in the classroom to help with developing community in their rooms. My expectation as superintendent of this district is that minimally, every educator spend at least 1 week developing relationships, period. Before you open up the curriculum, you need to develop relationships with the children in your room. It has to happen. They don't care what you know until they know you care. And so my expectation is that everyone is developing those relationships. Now the challenge is going to be, especially at the middle and high school level, is that everybody can't use all the same strategies. Because you know, after a while, after the third time they play past the whatever, they're like, look, we've done that in 3 rooms so far. We're done. We know everybody's name. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge. But just having that expectation and being able to move forward with it is going to really move the dial on student achievement. So the framework and definitions piece, as you can see here, it really does give us, like, what is restorative justice? What are you talking about? And where are the resources that I can find more information on that? If we're talking about a coordination of services team, what is that? What does that mean? When we say discipline, what are we talking about? So that we're all on the same page with some of these terms and getting this chart here really focusing on the social-emotional learning standards as well. So this document will be in the hands of every teacher for the first day of school, and every climate and culture coach is being trained on it as well so that they can help support these efforts inside of the classroom. The last thing we have, you see some of the swag that we have here to attract folks, but we have 3 signs here that are literally everybody can have them, wants to have them, anybody who wants these, but these are 3 tenets that we're using across the district. Folks know, my thing is excellence is the expectation. I expect excellence at every turn, out of myself and everyone else. Do we always meet the expectation of excellence? No, it happens, but continue to strive for it. So your best today may not be as great tomorrow, but we have to keep trying. The other piece is about believing in our kids. Our theme this year is we believe, students achieve. And so when we believe, everything in life starts with a belief. Our beliefs turn to actions, and those actions turn into results. If I believe that my babies can learn, then my actions will reflect that belief, and the results will reflect the integrity of those actions. So everything starts with a belief. And finally, that's what I said. Okay, here we go. We believe students achieve. And so we're really getting these out in the community, getting them out for all of us to keep in mind that everything starts with a belief. Is everything in Wayne Westland perfect? It's as perfect as it's going to be right now. Can we always get better? Yes. But everything starts with all of us in the district believing and really honing in on how we do business. So with that, I will say good night. Thank you, Madam President and Board of Education, and God bless.
Thank you, Dr. Holt. Moving on to item number 124.18, citizen comments, non-agenda items. Any comments? Okay. So just a reminder, again, you have 3 minutes, and that your question, if you have one, won't be answered by us right away.
I got that now.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Heather Hunt. I spoke at the last meeting. While I did appreciate meeting with Kate, chatting with her is always great, I don't feel like the questions for tag busing were actually addressed. The statement that there is tag busing available is just not completely true. There are several families that I know personally that have been denied busing completely, several families that are now pulling their kids from the program because they cannot get them there. My 8-year-old was offered transportation, 7:10 bus time with the 7th and 8th graders from our neighborhood to go to the middle school, to be picked up by another bus, to ride that route to get to school at 9 o'clock with no transportation home. I don't think that's really a viable answer to the TAG busing program. I know other families that were given that same option, and it's just not, those just aren't good options for any family.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns? Okay. Moving on to item 125.18, review and recommendations, Board of Education. Dr. Weaver.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I will be attending the bond committee on Thursday. Also, I'd like to take this chance, since I'm first up, to welcome all of our new employees. We're thankful that you're here, and we believe you're going to do a great job. Also want to say just one more time that my no vote earlier had nothing to do with the employee at all. I believe her to be a very competent person. There's one thing I noticed on our website, Madam President, and maybe you can help me work on that. Unless they were posted today, I don't see the financial ledgers from January 17th on posted, and I'd like to see those posted as soon as possible, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weaver. Mr. Buffalo.
Yes, thank you. Well, again, congratulations to our new hires. I would remind you of something that you probably already know. As you get into your building and once you've found where to hang your coat, the two people you need to find first are your secretary and your custodian. These are the people that are going to make your life easy. No question about that. But congratulations to all of you. I hope you have a successful year. We need your leadership, and I'm sure that you'll provide it. Dr. Holt, you have an amazing packet of information here. I'm going to go through it. I'm going to put it on my desk next to my telephone and next to my computer. And when I don't know the answer, it will either be there or who I need to contact will be there. And that's wonderful information, not just for us on the board, but for every parent and for every employee of the district as well. So this is fantastic. I noted that you made mention of the bond issue, and that's so important to us at this point. We have good buildings. They're in good repair. There's no question about that. We've taken care of our facilities. But over the years, they've become a little bit dated, particularly in the area of technology. They also need to be stretched out a little bit in some areas. We need to provide for programs that 30 years ago weren't considered worthy of being programs. So we have a lot to do if we're going to provide our students with the kind of education that they deserve, which is the very best education possible. And by the way, as we do that, we need to address the concerns of our staff, our teaching staff, our custodial staff, our secretarial staff, our bus drivers, our cafeteria workers. They all are, to borrow from you, Dr. Holt, they are educators in our system as well. And we value them not less than the most senior teacher in the district. Earlier this month, in fact, about a week and a half ago, I had the pleasure of attending the Summer Michigan School Board Association conference in Novi, Michigan. And at that time, we attended, I say we, Ms. Hines and Ms. Walker were in attendance. We saw a number of presentations on school safety, on school bonding, and one that I thought was particularly timely, one on transportation costs, including some ways that we might leverage our our limited resources in purchasing buses. There's something called the VW settlement, which I shared with you, Dr. Holt, and it may or may not have potential for us, but we need to look at it. So there were classes to be taken too. One of them was on leadership styles, and I have to tell you, I attended that class with Mrs. Walker, and she treated me very poorly. She picked on me to no end. But it was a good conference. I enjoyed every bit of it. Our summer's just about over, as we all know, and the new springtime for education begins. Once the kids start going back, what is it, on the 29th, I believe?
Yes, sir.
So all of us who are driving around in our cars need to take special care to look out for those kids moving here and there, and also for those big yellow buses. It's a relearning process, and we need to be cognizant of that. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buckle, and I didn't treat you bad.
I'll show you the bruises.
Mr. Cox.
I'd like to thank you, Madam President, for treating Mr. Buckaloo bad. We all appreciate that. I was at a social event over the weekend with someone who was attached to the school district many years ago, but haven't been for years, and they asked me, so what's new at Wayne Westland? I would need hours and hours and hours to answer that question, because frankly, everything is new. It just so happens that we're at a time in our district where a 20-year-old bond, which is the way that the long term that the district finances its operations, how we improve buildings, how we change buildings to meet new technology needs. I was on the Board of Education 20 years ago when the bond was placed before the voters. And at that time, 20 years ago, the bond was placed before the voters with a millage rate that was a full mill and 18/10 higher than the one that this Board of Education has put together for this November. Now, this isn't anything new. We had a bond for 20 years, and we're going to have a bond for the next 20 years. This is how districts finance their ongoing operations. And 20 years ago, when that bond was put before the voters, many people in the community who were part of the process voiced a concern that that which the bond is supposed to pay for actually is what gets done, and it doesn't get changed over the course of the years. And even though there have been many boards of education since then, they have all maintained a fiscal policy that made sure we had a balanced budget, and the money got spent as the money was supposed to be spent. And the thinking then, and I know it is now, is that by telling the community exactly what the money's for and spending it exactly like we're supposed to spend it, we will continue to enjoy the support of the community. And we like to talk about the fact that this bond is actually levied lower than the previous bond. Several months ago, a student came to the podium and they talked about safety issues that are their chief concern, and that's what the young people are talking about. They're seeing in the media, just as we're seeing it, what's going on in different communities across the nation with respect to safety concerns. And in this bond issue, in the packet that was delivered tonight by Dr. Holt, on all of the school buildings in the district, the first things to be done are safe and secure entrances to the school and security upgrades. So in addition to addressing the fact that our enrollment has declined, which has allowed us to attract some efficiencies because of that, and we've taken advantage of those things, safety of the students and the staff are #1 priority, as we know it is with every one of you. And it continues to be the thing that moves us. These changes that will be done to the building, some of the upgrades, some of the maintenance issues that my colleague Mr. Buckaloo mentioned will be addressed, but the safety and security issues, this is the time that we live in, and we're going to be proactive about it, and we're going to make sure that we have the infrastructure that we need to protect everybody in those buildings. So that's a big part of this, and I just wanted to point that out. And I also wanted to say, Dr. Holt, you spoke tonight about the work being done to implement the climate, culture, and social emotional learning. And you mentioned that there's going to be some mistakes and there's going to be some missteps. And I just want everybody to know that the Board of Education understands that. And we're making a lot of changes. We're doing what we want. Different results on standardized tests. Superintendent knows that. That's what everybody's working on. This bond issue, in large part, is put together so that the environment of learning can be more efficient to the testing that we're doing. It's all centered on that. And we're gonna make mistakes, and I'm glad that your policy is to dust them off and keep them going, because that's what we need to do. We need to just keep working towards the goal. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Ms. Hines.
I'd like to congratulate all the new staff members to our Wayne Westland family. It really melted my heart to see the diversity we're having in the district, and I love seeing educators that are parents that have young children. So it's really awesome to see that commitment that you guys are giving to our family. Also with the bond as well, I really do agree that we do have to pass this bond. It's very important to our community. It's important to our children. Like you said, safety as well. But one thing I am concerned about is people putting false information on the media about the bond. All the information, we're transparent, everything is here. So please do not put information that's not correct out there, because that's hurting our staff. We have to pay our teachers. We have to make sure we have buses. We have to have safe buildings. So please, I advise, do not put false information regarding the school district about the bond on social media, because it spreads like wildfire. And like Dr. Holt said, we want to spread the good news like it's bad news, and we have to really take care of our community. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. Ms. Liddell, welcome back.
Thank you. And I want to thank everybody for their good thoughts, their prayers. I did have surgery on the 30th, which is our last board meeting, and I keep looking at the clock thinking, yeah, right about now I'm in my hospital room throwing up all over everybody. That was...
Thanks for sharing.
That was wonderful. Do you know how long it's been since I've thrown up? God, that was so degrading. Thank you very much. And still recovering, and it's going to take a while because I'm not 18 anymore. How disappointing. But a lot of things that I was going to say have been said. Just remember, big yellows don't stop on a dime. Please don't cut them off and then expect them not to run into the trunk of your car, because that does happen. So also, when they're traveling down the road, something that big looks like it's speeding, but if you're following it, you can see that they are going within the posted speed limit. So, you know, something that big looks like it's going faster than it really is, and then we hear complaints, they're speeding down Michigan Avenue. Not really. I've been following them enough over the years. Our bus drivers are so very proud of their safety record in the school district, and we're so very proud of them also. And I need to find out how the bus rodeo went, because I know we had a couple of people participate again this year, and I haven't heard anything or seen anything on social media. But again, welcoming the students back. We have people in place to make sure that the quality of education will be continued, if not bettered. And we want to make sure that moving forward, we give our students the best possible education that we can provide.
Thank you, Mrs. Liddell. So everyone knows by the time he gets to me, they've already said everything. So I'm just going to say welcome to the new school year. Welcome to the Wayne Westland family, to all those that we approved tonight. And thank you to each and every one of you for taking time off your schedule to come and be with us this evening. It's greatly appreciated, and I love seeing the audience full. We have a lot of information that we're sharing, and it's good to hear it firsthand. So with that being said, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cox. Any support? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.